Good morning, everyone. I put up this picture here partially because I feel a bit lost, actually. I am asked to speak about electronic invoicing to an audience of electronic invoicing experts, which is a bit of a nerve-wracking experience, of course. I have to say, to set the scene a little bit, that, you know, my expertise is maybe not the technical detail or sort of the very granular things around electronic invoicing. But I consider myself a traveler, and I like to get lost, like you can see from the picture here, from the souk in Marrakesh, you know, trying to be curious and trying to talk to everybody in the industry, talk to the customers, talk to the infrastructure providers, the banks, etc., to sort of form a view, I guess you can call it, of how this industry is developing and what is important for our customers in particular and consumers. So that's sort of the framework that I have put up on this presentation. So we'll give a short introduction to ourselves in Orbyt. Might be a new name for some of you. Very briefly, I will then sort of take a bit of a step back and talk about the Nordics and talk about sort of how we see the development and what's working, what's not working, and finally end up with the way forward. So I hope that will satisfy the requirements for the presentation. And like Timo said, you know, if there's questions, please feel free to ask them. So briefly then to Orbyt. Well, Orbyt is actually a bit of a, we like to think of ourselves as a bit of a hidden gem. So we are a Nordic invoicing and payment platform. We are specialized in more sort of enterprise type customers, so in insurance companies, in media, telecom, debt collection as well. We partner with utility companies, etc., that have very complex needs around invoicing and payments, and we work in the background to fix those for our customers. So we pride ourselves on many different things, as you can see on the page here. But maybe a key highlight for this audience, and since we're in Finland, is that we recently announced our acquisition of the Telia Talous business, and I have a few future colleagues in the audience here today as well. So we will sort of materially change our presence in the Finnish market, going also from the roughly 70 people that we are today to up to 80. So that's it's a good timing, I guess, to be here as well to introduce Orbyt to you guys. Like I said, you know, we are specialized on enterprise clients with very complex needs in terms of invoicing and payments. And one of the things that our customers, you know, focus on and that is important for them is the ability to cater both to B2B and B2C use cases, and being able to do them equally well. And I think I put up this page here to illustrate a little bit that there are different needs and different things that are important across B2C and B2B. So what you see on the page is essentially the average sum on invoices that are sent through our platform, and then divided by customers. So each little bar here represents a customer of Orbyt. And there you can see it ranges from an average sum on the invoice from 15 euros for charity organizations, here exemplified by Greenpeace, all the way to 500,000 euros for this customer Bokis, which is essentially banking group, and they do a lot of intercompany invoicing between the different banks, taking sort of the average sum on those invoices to very extreme heights, essentially. And I'd like to sort of set the scene and start setting the scene a little bit there, because I will come back to a number of times. You know, there are three things that we really focus on when we talk to customers. So one is the customer experience, making sure that you know, you get the invoice where you need and want, making sure that it's clear, the information on the invoice, what you're supposed to pay and why. The other is collection rate, so how fast do you actually get the money in to have a strong cash flow profile in your business. And the third is cost. And cost is super important, obviously, for our customers, in the sense that they send millions of invoices every year. So whether or not it's a paper or a digital invoice matters for the bottom line. And these sort of how we optimize between these different things varies a little bit between B2B and B2C to start there. So like I mentioned here, you know, if you're a charity organization and you have you're out there trying to sell some sort of subscription or get donations, conversion rate and making it super smooth in the initial phase, that you can sign up digitally, you can sign up also to your preferred payment method digitally, is maybe the number one key thing for those customers. However, if you then take that to the B2B angle, maybe less important, because the invoice is always sent after, and what then matters is rather having a very strong, secure, stable platform with high demands to sort of clarity again of the invoice, making sure that it comes to the right recipient, not only the right company, but also the right recipient in the company, and that the compliance demands are satisfied, etc. So in that sense, the B2B and B2C is quite different. And then there are, you know, a range in between. So here exemplified with OBOS, a Norwegian housing association, you know, roughly 1,000 euros in average ticket size. Nordea with 3,000 euros for sort of financing, car financing, that type of thing. You know, so it's a sliding scale. It is not necessarily only the customer experience that matters then, but more sort of the cost side of things and more the payment rate of things. And this, I think, if you take the Nordic perspective, the ability to optimize between those three things, the payment rate, the customer experience, and the cost, our ability to do that differs a little bit by market, to put it that way, and I'll come a bit back to it as well. And that's why also we're seeing quite a number of initiatives in our industry. If you take sort of the broad lens of the Nordics here, we're seeing an acceleration of initiatives targeted at modernizing invoicing and payments, both B2C and B2B. You know, if we take it was a long time where it was only paper-based, cash, checks, going back and forth. I mean, our American friends in Visa, MasterCard sort of came out in the 1950s, and then, you know, betaling service in Denmark, which is still the predominant way of paying bills for consumers in Denmark, was actually launched in the 1970s. So getting a bit old, that lady. Let's see if she lives another 40, 50 years. but there is quite slow and stable development, I would call it, where that has led us to where we are today. And now we're seeing, initiatives like P27. We're seeing front-end development through mobile pay subscription. In Finland, you had this startup Clever as well, trying to address some of these issues that I talked about earlier around sort of fully digital onboarding to the invoicing method, etc. But I think it's fair to say that while the number of initiatives are accelerating, the number of failed initiatives are also accelerating. So P27 being the obvious example, trying to modernize this across the Nordics, may be slightly overambitious, and has sort of been taken out of the scope with the exception of Sweden. But there are new initiatives. We're now talking about SEPA request to pay. We're talking about variable recurring payments. We're even talking about central bank digital currencies. So there's a lot of effort, a lot of initiative going into the space that we're not talking about. And the Peppol initiatives as well, far more successful than some of the examples that I've mentioned here, and I will get back to sort of maybe why we think that is. But we see it actually if you look at our view of digitization rates in invoicing across the Nordics. There are some official sources in terms of the split between paper and digital on sort of a Nordic basis. But we think that those numbers are a little bit, we're not that confident in a lot of them. So here we've simply taken sort of our view. Again, this is maybe a little bit skewed towards enterprise customers, etc., but should give sort of an overall picture of the state of the union, so to speak. And I think now, both for B2B and B2C in Norway, we're sort of approaching the 90% mark in terms of digital invoicing. If you are a normal consumer-oriented business in media, telecom, insurance companies, etc., with the smaller B2B business, you are probably at 95–96% of digital invoicing. And what drives that is centralization. So there's one database for digital invoicing, both for B2B and B2C. In B2C, this has been a banking-led initiative that has really they have collaborated across the different banks. So they have outsourced the whole service and technical platform to one provider rather than several. So of course that comes with some pros and cons. But one of the obvious pros is that we can query towards, when we send invoices, query towards that database. And we know that almost all Norwegian adults on the consumer side and almost all Norwegian businesses we are able to reach them in a digital way, which really drives that high digitization rate. And then if I go all the way to the other side, to the sort of seemingly leader in this Nordic market, which is Denmark, for our customers, almost all digital. And it sort of goes back to not necessarily a very modern way of collecting digital payments and sending digital invoices, but the fact that betaling service in Denmark has existed for then those almost 50 years now, and meaning that all Danish consumers use that as the number one way of paying bills. But as I will come back to a little bit later, it is all digital, but it also far more expensive than the equivalent digital ways of sending invoices and collecting payments in the other markets. So it's still it's digital, but it's also quite old-fashioned in the way that it's set up. And then for our customers, you have Sweden and Finland, sort of still a way to go in terms of digitizing, both on the B2C and the B2B side. The small little difference here between Sweden and Finland is mainly driven by the adoption of digital mailboxes. So Kivra in Sweden is far more used than Omaposti and equivalent in Finland, and that's what drives that small difference for us. And then I made a short little comment here on the Norwegian numbers, that the paper is essentially driven by one vertical in particular, and that's debt collection. So still there is some regulation around sort of when you are in the final stages of debt collection, you need to make sure that the recipient has actually received it, and there is still regulation that needs to happen through the post, essentially. So that's what really drives that remaining paper piece in Norway, and that's something that we see in other markets as well. If I then go a bit more detailed and a bit more and deep dive a little bit into those two digital leaders and try to make a bit of a comparison between the two. Both of them, Norway and Denmark, have had local PEPL implementations. So not sort of standardized in a way, but sort of aligned towards PEPL and how that is supposed to work in the standards. But it has the adoption of Nemhandel in Denmark versus EHF and access points in Norway is still quite different. So now when you look at the receiver side, there's far more receivers in Norway than there is in Denmark. There's far more volumes in Norway than it is in Denmark. Here it says that 100 million invoices are sent in Norway, which we think is roughly 80% of the total B2B invoicing volume. Just a quick comment on that is that doesn't mean that the rest is paper. The rest is email essentially, and other forms of sort of pseudo digital ways of invoicing. So still, from a cost perspective, not necessarily a big issue. And there I've tried to sort of paint a picture here as well between why is there such a big difference. And I think if you go into the official databases on PEPL invoicing and an access point in Norway and look at who are the biggest senders of electronic invoices, it is cloud-based accounting systems, essentially. So they, with Visma and the others, they have been frontrunners in adopting PEPL and access point infrastructures, really from a sort of efficiency, sort of cost reduction point of view, and have been driving this quite a lot and making it very easy to become a recipient of electronic invoices and a sender for that matter. While as in Denmark, this is sort of highly regulatory driven. So there is a regulation that you need to send digital invoices to the government. And they're now thinking about and implementing regulation that stipulates that all businesses, essentially, when you want to do invoicing, need to do that in a digital way. So, like I will come back to, regulation is a motivator, and it's good that the government takes a stand, but the most important to get to that next level, I think, is more getting all the companies, all the private companies aboard for businesses and B2B, and getting all the consumers on board for B2C invoicing. And that's, you know, then you're back to my little three aspects of cost, customer experience, and payment rates, and making that business case clear for businesses that this is important. And that from our customers can sometimes be a bit hard, because if you think about going from paper to some sort of digital way, it is super clear for all the customers that makes total sense. The benefit far outweighs the pain of actually getting there. But getting to that next step from let's take EDI or sort of email invoicing or something to Peppol or to another slightly better way of doing digital invoicing that requires the whole ecosystem to do something differently, that requires all the recipients to do something differently. You know, that requires a lot more. That requires a lot more conviction, because the business case for businesses is not necessarily as clear. You know, the difference between paper and digital is very tangible. You know, you can see the cost of both of them. But the next level, and making sure that you convince that, you know, you need to move to an even better system, as I call it here, is a bit more difficult for our customers. You know, and convincing them that take that pain, take that cost of implementing this, take that cost of telling all your suppliers and all your customers that they now need to pay in a different way. But we do, you know, there is, as always, light at the end of the tunnel, and I think I wanted to take you through a little bit of sort of what are our customers then saying, and what is important for them. And I think the unison sort of feedback that we're getting from customers is that the way that they invoice today, especially when you look at cross-country companies that are present in more than one country, is not sort of fully supporting the needs of our customers. So again, more of a B2C point, but if you think about recurring payments, direct debit, electronic invoicing in the different markets, it's not really built for the world that we are in today. So direct debit in Norway, you need to notify customers that you are going to pull the money, I think 5 business days or something ahead of time. So if you contrast that with sort of having a digital streaming service, Netflix-like type of streaming service, where you can cancel the subscription on a day's notice or a minute's notice, that suddenly that payment method and that invoicing method suddenly doesn't work. It is the most used and it is the cheapest, but it doesn't work for that specific use case. So these new business models that our customers are adopting requires something different. Oftentimes in the B2C world, leading them to adopt card payments for recurring payments, which, as sort of you may or may not know, comes with a completely different cost profile. It means that you need to pay quite a lot of money to what is essentially a global duopoly of card payments in Visa, MasterCard, which is, you know, back to the cost angle. You know, it may be a good customer experience. It might drive significant business for you, but it also comes with a cost. Then to my second point here is that, you know, all of these systems, the ERP systems, the accounting systems, has sort of been built from a, you know, the invoice is a is a PDF, essentially, that is generated on and sent somewhere. But as everyone will realize, sort of reading the detail of a PDF on your mobile phone, especially take B2B, hundreds of lines, you need to understand what this actually is. That also breaks down a little bit. And if you think about the utilities sector and electricity sales, having your customers suddenly getting a bill that is 3 times higher, 4 times higher, 5 times higher, and asking them to read that PDF for the detail, again, doesn't really work that well, right? So having more of an interactive approach, having more of a data-driven approach, where you can actually give the consumer or the business clarity on what are they going to pay and why in particular, is going to be very, very important. And I think as of now, the Peppol infrastructure and the B2B doesn't necessarily cater for all of this. Like a point that I forgot to make on the previous page was that in Norway we have 200,000 plus receivers, but only 9,000 of them have signed up for reminders. So that is also something where if you haven't paid or something goes wrong, then having the reminder in sort of the same ERP system and getting that into where you actually approve those bills is going to be quite important. And that, like I make the point here as well, there is an increasing number of late payments as a result. There's a cost of living crisis, the cash flow is far more tight, meaning that having that end-to-end view of the customer is going to be so much more important going into the future. And there we see, if you take again the Nordic view, that this is quite hard to get the end-to-end view of the customer. So as one example, in Sweden, we can send an electronic invoice, but what happens after we have actually sent it, who knows, essentially. I mean, we hope that it will get paid, and we will get notified when it does get paid, but everything in the middle is essentially a black box for us. While as in Norway, we can query, and we can say, has the business or the consumer opened the invoice? Has he put it to payment? Maybe he or she needs some sort of payment plan? I think this is going to be more and more important to have that end-to-end view of the customer. And I think the way that it's structured now, that data is not widely available across all countries and use cases. And then finally, a comment that we get a lot from especially our Nordic customers is that it's a bit strange to them, maybe, that this works, electronic invoicing, especially on B2C actually, works in so different ways across the different Nordic countries. So in broader Europe with SEPA direct debit, etc., at least it's not ideal, but at least it's clear that this is how it's supposed to work. Whilst in our little sort of 27 million market here, we have a vast variety of different ways of both sending invoices and collecting payments. And I think what you see as a result, back to my previous page, is that the digitization rates are not where they should be, which is then, to my final point on the page here, is becoming more and more urgent because the postage providers and the mail carriers are increasing the prices 9, 10, 15% every time they do something, in combination with the service delivery is going down. So you pay more, but you get worse service delivery. So this is becoming more and more urgent thing for our customers and more important thing to tackle. So I end then back at a little bit where I started. You know, at Orbyt, we're put in this world to optimize between these three different goals, using the cheapest way of getting paid, getting the money in as fast as possible, and making sure that it is in a way that the customer really wants it. And this is quite hard to do in certain markets and certain use cases. But I think to sort of end on a sort of pro-Peppol, pro-open Peppol point of view, when it comes to B2B, where Peppol has sort of been a success, this goal and the trade-off between these three things is no longer hard. It is the cheapest way. You get the invoice into the accounting system of the recipient. That's where they want it. And if they get it where they want it, the likelihood that they pay on time is that much higher. So do like Netflix here, you know, have an ideal mix of payment method and work hard on that. But I think for B2B, we should all be interested in making sure that method is Peppol. Thank you.